Shem Tov came around, there was a serious crisis, obviously. And it was necessary for the Baal Shem Tov to create a revolution, to make a radical, serious change, because something was not right. What was wrong? What was the problem? What was the danger? What was the crisis? So if you read the stories of the Baal Shem Tov, the Maisalach, the crisis was that the Talmidei Chachamim of the generation rejected and ignored the Anoshim Pshutim. The truth is, they didn't just ignore them. They hated them with a passion. And they treated them like dirt in extreme cases. So people say that was the crisis. No. The crisis was, like it says in the Sichos, in the Yeshimas, it said the crisis was that the people, Am Yisrael, were fachalished. We were fainting from all the tzadas, from all the whatever. Shabtai Tzvi. The Baal Shem Tov came along to revive a people that were basically fainted, in a coma. What does that mean? I understand that they were broken-hearted, they were frightened, they were discouraged. The true problem that was not a temporary down time, but a real problem for the future, a danger, was that Yedias Hashem had completely disappeared. There was no Yedias Hashem. The big Talmidei Chachamim knew Halacha, they knew Gemara, they even knew Kabbalah, but there was no Yedias Hashem. When the Baal Shem Tov said that the Anoshim Pshutim are closer, higher, better in some way than the Talmidei Chachamim, what he really meant to say was the Anoshim Pshutim still know that there's an Eibishter. They have a Yedias Hashem, not the Yedias Hashem of a Chacham, the Yedias Hashem of an Ish Poshet. By them, the Eibishter was the Eibishter. There was no Chachmas. They were still in touch with an Eibishter. Talmidei Chachamim no longer had an Eibishter. They had a Torah, they had Lamdus, there was no Eibishter. And that's why all those jokes about the Talmidei Chachamim who thought they were the biggest tzaddikim in the world, and the Eibishter doesn't know how to reward them and how to thank them. And they had such a crazy notion of an Eibishter that it was horrible. The Baal Shem Tov basically brought back, I'm not sure when it was, but he brought back the Eibishter. The Alter Rebbe took it a step further and brought the Eibishter not just into a simple emunah awareness, but push it into seichel, to understand the Eibishter, to get to know him. That's Chassidus. Al pi nigla, there's a mitzvah of Yedias Hashem, which is a constant mitzvah, and you have to ask yourself, how do you do that? How do you fulfill the mitzvah of Yedias Hashem? What do you know about the Eibishter today that you didn't know yesterday? Or last year? So it's not enough to say, I learned another daf, another blot, I learned another maimer, I learned another sicha. What do you know about the Eibishter? The fact that Chassidus was Megala, that there's a kavana of a dira b'tachtonim, that's a big piece of information about the Eibishter that nobody knew before. that Nesav Eloi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nobody knew that. Nobody understood that. Do we understand that? So now we have to know, what does it mean to understand? You learn something, did you understand it? How do I know if I understood it? What's the test? When you understand something, you can say it in your own words. They say about the Rebbe's brother that he could explain and describe all the madregas from Chachma de Bria, something like that, without using a Hebrew word. That's big. First of all, what is Bria? Don't use a Hebrew word. What is Chachma de Bria? Don't use Hebrew words. How is it different from Atzilus, and how is it different from Bina de Bria? Don't use Hebrew words. Can you tell me? So let me tell you something, really, see if this makes any sense. This is preliminary to the question. The scientists are trying to figure out how the world started. More or less, they've given up, because they traced it back, to the best of their knowledge, to two things. And those two things made an explosion, and the world started. If you go back to two things, you haven't gotten back to the beginning. Can't start with two. The only thing that starts with two is the Gemara, starts on Daf Beis. Everything else starts with one. But the problem is, if you start with one, if you figure out what was the first original Metzias from which everything else came, the Motzi Rishon. If you find the Motzi Rishon, then you're stuck. Because if you say, in the beginning there was just this one thing, okay, and then nothing. Why would it change? There's only one thing, and then? It's like, if a bottle of ink spilled, could it write a book? Maybe, but why would it spill? Who spilled the ink? So there was only a bottle of ink, that's all there was. And then it spilled. Why would it spill? Oh, the wind knocked it over. Well, then there was a wind. That's the problem with Hashem Echad. If you have one Eibishter, nothing happens. You have to have two Eibishters, they get into a fight. They make sparks, and the sparks makes a sun, and the sun... I mean, you got to have some activity going on. This is the problem even in Kabbalah. If the Eibishter is the Motzi Rishon, and he is the Etzem of the Etzem, and Etzem built in Mischalik, and Etzem built in Nishtana, so what happened? So the scientists are basically stuck. Because if they do find one thing at the beginning, then there's no explanation for why anything changed. It makes sense, yeah? I mean, tell me if it doesn't. If you're alone, completely alone, and there's nothing else in the world, how would you change? Not how. Why? What would make you change? So we know that the table had to have a creator. Why? Because it's only a table. It doesn't dance, it doesn't sing, not very talented. How come? If it's its own metzius, who made such limitations on it? If a table was an original being, why is it just a table? So there must be a stronger koyach that's not letting it be more than it is. If you say there was an original etzem being, and nothing is more powerful than it, then what could force it to change? So Atahu Mishalei Nivra Ha'olam, and that's it, end of story. That's it. What happened? There's only one explanation in human seichel. If you have one thing and it changes, where did the change come from? From itself. It was voluntary. What does it mean when something voluntarily changes? What do you call that? It's called rotzen. But usually rotzen is for something. If there was nothing else, what do you mean? The Eibishter, or the original being, wanted. There was nothing to want. That's why you have to call it, there's only one logical explanation. You have to call it a taiva. It was not a rotzen for something. It was an internal taiva, a desire. So tomorrow morning, every honest scientist who has the guts to tell the truth would get up and say, this table is the Eibishter's taiva. That's the only explanation in science. An example, if you were sleeping comfortably, nothing bothered you, you were totally at peace, and there was nothing else besides you to wake you up, would you wake up? The question is not how do you wake up. The question is, if there's nothing else, why would you wake up? It's so comfortable, it's so good, it's so perfect. Leave it, let it be. What makes a person wake up? There's only one possible answer. He wants something. There's a rotzen. Without that rotzen, people wouldn't wake up. You do an operation on a person, you put him to sleep. All the pain that he was feeling is gone. He's completely comfortable, unconscious. Why would he come back? Not how. Why? He knows he's going to come back to more pain till it heals, until everything gets fixed. Right now there's no pain, there's no worries, there's no problems. Why would he come back? So before doctors do an operation, they have to determine, does the patient want to live? Because if he doesn't, he's not going to survive the surgery. No, he's not going to survive the anesthetic. He'll be so comfortable, he won't come back. So what changes internally when there's nothing forcing you to change? Only an internal taiva. That's the best answer in the world. There is no other explanation. So the scientist is that far away from the emes. They just don't want to admit it, but they know it. Now the Rambam says, what's going to happen when Mashiach comes? One of the things is going to be, Lo yihye esik kol ha'olam elo lo das es Hashem bilvad. Can you picture that? Can you imagine that? Everybody in the world is just going to want to know the Eibishter. That sounds like a miracle. Doesn't sound like this world. It's not a miracle. We're this far away from it right now. When the scientists come and say, we discovered the emes, where we now understand this table. We've been trying for thousands of years to understand what a gashmizdika thing is. We now understand it. In the beginning, there was one thing, and that one thing wanted, and that created the world. What's going to be the next question that people are going to ask?
What's that one thing?
What does he want?
What does he want? What does he want? Yedias Hashem doesn't mean knowing that there's an Eibishter. Everybody, ask anybody in the street, there's an Eibishter. They know there's an Eibishter. In the jungles, they know there's an Eibishter. Yedias Hashem means get to know him. Not believe that he exists. That's kindergarten stuff. How do you get to know him? Get to know, what does he want? What does he think? What's his opinion on this and what's his opinion on that? What does he like? What does he not like? That's called Yedias Hashem. So when the Rebbe said, open your eyes and you'll see, what are you supposed to be looking for? Miracles? That's not Moshiach. You're supposed to be looking to see how the world is ready to be what the Rambam says the world is supposed to be when Mashiach comes. So how is it going to happen that the whole world is going to be interested only in Yedias Hashem? We're not talking about every shmendik in the street. We're talking about anybody who likes to learn. Intelligent people. Intelligence is going to have only one major direction. More Yedias Hashem. That's why Rambam says, when that happens, Yidden are going to be Chachamim Gedolim, because we know Dvarim Stumim. Who knows Dvarim Stumim? You're supposed to be the one. You sit and learn Dvarim Stumim. Nobody else does. Nobody else does. I remember sitting in yeshiva back in Bedford. We were about your age. There were only, there was the English department. Everybody went to English. And then there was a small group that didn't go to English. Maybe 12 Bochurim didn't go to English. So we were sitting there one afternoon when everybody else was in English, and we were thinking, who are the Chassidim of today? We made a cheshbon. Those who go to English, off. Those in 770, they're already thinking about shidduchim. It's older Bochurim, off. The married men, the balabatim, nothing to talk about. The kids who are still in in the lower grades, and they sit over there with a malamed. It came down to this. There are 12 of us. And that's it. Because Bochurim in Eretz Yisrael and Chabad, they're Israelis. And the ones over there in Canada, they're Canadians. And that's it. It was 12 of us. And the whole world depended on us. That was it. Because that's it. Who's a Chassidish Bochurim? Now that I think about it, it's true. It's mamish true. In fact, the Rebbe once said to somebody in Yechidus, he was not very happy about the matzav of the world. And he said, the alte schlafen, the older guys have given up, they fall asleep. And I'm hoping that the new generation, will accomplish something. So who's the new generation? Kids in Cheder. The new generation is your age. That's it. So you're learning Dvarim Stumim. And the whole world depends on you because everybody else is out up from Weg. What are the Dvarim Stumim that you're learning and that you know and that you understand? So here's my point. If you want to accomplish anything, if you want to be on the right page, on the right path, on the right track, you have to start to know what Chassidus says. You have 10 generations, 9 generations of information, Chassidus, from the Baal Shem Tov. You have probably double the information of a generation ago because the Rebbe added so much. The question is, do you know it? And if you don't know it, isn't that frustrating? Isn't that upsetting? To sit for an hour and not come away knowing something, that's painful. Very discouraging. Your brain gives up. It expects to know something. You sit there for an hour, and after the hour, the brain still doesn't know anything. It gets upset. It starts to give up. So when you learn a Maimah, you learn a Sikha. Don't quit until you know something. Now wait a minute, there's a difference between knowing it, the Maimah, the Sikha, or knowing something. When you finish a Maimah, you finish even an Eis, one paragraph, stop and ask yourself, what do I know? Don't repeat, don't chazer the Maimah. Don't memorize it. What do you know? What piece of information do you now have? How has your Yediyas Hashem increased? First of all, you'll walk away feeling normal. You learned and you know. Amazing thing. It's like a little miracle happens over there. You sat and learned and all of a sudden you know. How does that happen? When you know, then you have something to say. Then you have something to teach. If you don't know, what are you going to do? Chazer HaMaimer for people on Neftzayim?